Castellino, Program Manager for the University Partnerships team at Swissnex in India. And I thank you for joining in today for this Ask Me Anything session for the ThinkSwiss Scholarships 2022, which is curated by Swissnex in India. I've been receiving a lot of queries about this scholarship, and I also thought it's best if we bring together three of our former awardees as well to answer your pressing queries and questions. But before that, I'll just give you a brief introduction about the ThinkSwiss Scholarship Program. The ThinkSwiss Research Scholarship is a program, Asia Pacific program, funded by the State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation, SERI, and is supported by Swissnex in India and our embassies in Singapore and Australia. The aim of the program is to promote and provide research opportunities in Switzerland for Indian, Australian, and Singaporean students, and to foster the exchange between Switzerland and universities in the Asia Pacific region. Next, I will be going to answer some questions for you. And I've also made like a very curated list of those questions, which I receive quite frequently. And I will also let our three former awardees answer a few of these questions. So first, I will move on to the questions which I receive most. And the first one being, once selected, students ask me, are our travel expenses borne by Swissnex or the students need to arrange it themselves? So for this, I would answer by saying the student needs to make prior arrangements. The scholarship is not a full scholarship, like it partially covers the costs and not the full cost of your stay in Switzerland. So just keep in mind that you will have to make arrangements and have some funds in your account before you travel out of India. The second most pressing question I receive is, what is the eligibility criteria when it comes to selecting universities? Which universities basically are eligible under the ThinkSwiss Scholarship? So you can choose public funded universities and universities of applied sciences. Bear in mind that internships by private companies and private research organizations are not eligible under ThinkSwiss. A lot of students write to me and my colleagues asking this question, if I can intern for a company under the ThinkSwiss scholarship, and sadly you cannot. So just bear in mind, public funded universities are eligible and universities of applied sciences also come under the list. So you can apply to these two universities, these two types of universities rather. What are the documents required? So you need an acceptance letter from a professor at a Swiss university. You will need your Indian university transcripts, and you will need a recommendation letter from a professor in India. You can send this recommendation letter to me over email if your professor wants to ensure confidentiality, or I mean, if he or she is fine to send it across to you, then you can upload it on the ThinkSwiss scholarship form itself. And of course, your complete filled application form. So who is eligible to apply for this scholarship? So you currently need to be enrolled at an accredited Indian university. You need to be a master's degree student or a bachelor degree student who will have completed the second year by the time the research stay in Switzerland begins. So just keep in mind these criteria. Then you will have to provide a written confirmation, as I mentioned earlier, from a professor at a Swiss university that he or she is ready to accept you as part of your research stay within his or her group. And also PhD students are not eligible. I'm so sorry, but I also receive a lot of queries from PhD students. If they are eligible, you are not, but you can look at the Swiss government excellence scholarships instead. These are also Swiss government scholarships, so do give it a look. What are the important points you need to keep in mind when it comes to selection criteria. A lot of students ask us if GPA, is the defining factor, and let me tell you, it's not. So your overall resume, which has your extracurriculars mentioned, publications, and of course GPA, it's a combination of these three factors, which will play a role in the selection for ThinkSwiss. So your GPA alone will not be a defining factor. So that shouldn't stop if you have a lower GPA. If you feel you have a lower GPA, it shouldn't stop you from applying for ThinkSwiss. I'm sure a lot of you have other credentials and talents which will come out strongly in your resume. Um, yes, your visa, housing, and transportation related questions. Now, this is another subset of questions which I received the most. Concerning visas to Switzerland, please follow the process mentioned on the Swiss Embassy page. VFS Global for India is a page you can refer to. That their website has all the necessary visa information, and apply with sufficient time in your hand. Our office, that is Swissnex in India, cannot influence your visa process. Um, Please note that the conditions for your visa approval are determined by the canton, which is basically the state, in states rather in Switzerland, and the respective cantonal authorities might ask you to prove that you have sufficient financial means to sustain yourself during your stay in Switzerland. So please make arrangements for that as well. You can give details of alternative accounts, or a family member who you're dependent on, and yeah, prove to them that you have enough funds to stay in Switzerland, because 1600 francs a month will generally not be accepted as sufficient proof. So just bear that in mind. And the monthly cost of living in Switzerland on average varies from 1500 to 2200, 2300 francs, depending on the canton. And our three former recipients will tell you, will be better suited to address these questions about living costs in Switzerland. And I also receive a query where foreign nationals who study in Indian universities are eligible or not for the scholarship. Yes, you're very much eligible, as you are part of an Indian university. So you can go ahead and apply for the scholarship. Then again, coming to another travel question, is airfare reimbursed by Swissnex in India? As I mentioned earlier, for travel costs, the airfare will have to be borne by the awardee. The scholarship stipend will only partially be covered by cover your living costs, your travel costs in Switzerland. So once you arrive in Switzerland, that's when we pay you the scholarship amount. We give you the scholarship amount on your arrival in Switzerland. So just bear that in mind. Arrange your funds, fly out of India, and then we will provide you the funds once you've given us proof of your accommodation in Switzerland, uh, by copying your professor. You need to write us an email that you've arrived in Switzerland, and the money will be dispersed to you. Now, these are the questions I receive most. However, now I'll be opening the floor to our three former recipients. We have Dibya, we have Taenaz, and we have Sharika, who are joining us this evening, and they will talk about their experiences. So first, I would like Sharika, Dibya, and Taenaz to introduce themselves, starting with Sharika. Over to you, Sharika.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Cassius, for inviting me to this call. So when you messaged me, I just began reminiscing about my days in Switzerland, and it was beautiful. So to guys, just to give you an introduction, my name is Sharika Mahadevan. I was a graduate from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. I was majoring in biological engineering. So in my final year, I was looking for opportunities to further my theoretical knowledge, and so was seeking out opportunities to apply it in a real world scenario. So that's when I came across ThinkSwiss and was really excited, like many of you who are on this call today. So I hope the three of us and Cassius can actually guide you on the application process. Thank you once again for having me on this forum.
Dibya, go ahead.
So I'm Dibbo, and I am a graduate student from the Indian Institute of Science Education and Research Tirupati, IISER Tirupati, and I applied for the scholarship in my final year of master's thesis. So I did not actually apply for an internship. I wanted to go to Switzerland for my thesis, which is a year-long project, and the lab which I got accepted into had partially funded me, so I thought the rest of the funding I could apply to ThinkSwiss, and it actually worked out. And yeah, I ended up in EPFL in Lausanne, and I finished my thesis over there. And subsequently, I got a PhD in Switzerland, not in the same institute, but a different city, Basel. And I'm currently there. And I hope this session is helpful for everyone.
Thank you, Dibbo. Over to you, Taenaz.
Hi, my name is Taenaz, and I'm from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. I completed my master's in public policy, and similar to what Dibbo was saying, I also had a project in hand. I was working with a Swiss professor as his research assistant, and so part of my so first I saw this ThinkSwiss scholarship, and then I wrote to him asking whether he can accommodate me in the project and if I can go to Switzerland and work. And he was more than generous, and he gave me a good supporting letter. And I had to initially give him a motivation letter, and then he supported me throughout. And I was also in Lausanne, in University of Lausanne, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. I can say it was truly amazing, and I really hope I can help anyone who's interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharika, Dibbo, and Taenaz. And now I'm moving on to the targeted questions which I've prepared for each of you. But feel free to answer them. Like if I have a question for Sharika, Dibbo or Taenaz can also go ahead and add on, give your contributions over there. So my first question for Sharika is, how did you reach out to a professor in Switzerland? Because this is also a query I receive quite a bit. So yeah, you can go ahead and clarify that for our
Okay.
potential awardees and applicants.
Okay. Thank you so much for this question, because this is something I was trying to figure out throughout my journey during college. So I'll first begin with the different approaches that you can follow to reach out to professors, and then I'll explain what I did in my personal case, so that gives some context. So the first and foremost method would be to reach out to the professors directly. The most of the universities in Switzerland are very have very detailed websites which give you all the contact information needed for the professors.
Mhm.
So you can feel free to drop them an email, and most of them are super professional and will respond to you. If they don't, you can for sure send them a follow-up email and they will respond to you. The next method is so now we have so many professional networking websites, like the main one being LinkedIn. So you can reach out to, say, researchers in other like in the research labs. It doesn't need to be the professor itself, but just someone working alongside the professor, so they can let you know are there vacancies in that lab, etc. Or they, in fact, like if your professor missed the email, they can perhaps tell the professor, hey, like I got this message from a candidate who's super interested in working with us, and maybe please check your emails again, because they told me that they tried to reach out to you. And like the third method would be to speak to professors in your home university and see if they have collaboration with labs in Switzerland. And most of them actually do. You'll actually be surprised to see how connected the professors who like you see on a daily basis are. And I've seen a lot of students get opportunities in Switzerland that way. So now going on to my personal experience, I had actually emailed the professor. So I went to my research area was very, very specific. So there were very few labs that did the work that I was interested in. And so when I emailed this professor, he wrote back to me, like, I think in 2 weeks. And from there, we went on to set up connects to get to know each other better, get to know the work better. So after this, we define what would be the scope of the project, which is one of the critical elements in your application. And yeah, that's how I did it. So Taenaz and Dippo, if you guys have anything to add on about how you guys went about it, please feel free.
I could add one point. So, when you're looking for open positions, Twitter is also a good space for science, because a lot of labs nowadays they advertise open positions or projects they are working on, and that might also be a good starting point to look for labs. And as for my personal journey, so the lab I was applying to, they had these open positions advertised along with the projects. So a lot of the labs in EPFL do that thing. They have their own open position pages, and you can actually go there and base your cover letter based on the project they are proposing. So that's also a good way, I would say.
And Sharika and Taenaz, you have anything to add?
Like, not much, but like Sharika said, most of the professors we see every day, they have tons of friends across the world, and having that connection is very important. Like, I was very fortunate that I knew my host professor in Switzerland for more than a year when I was applying, but that connection also happened through my professor, like through my professor at IIT Bombay. So yeah, like she said, it's important. If you don't have any leads, then the first option I would say is talk to your professor in your own university. Thank you.
I think that was pretty comprehensive. Thanks to the three of you. I'll move on to the next question, and that's for Dibbo. What are the minimum monthly funds which you require to stay in Switzerland based on your experience?
So that's a very subjective question to begin with. But then again, so there's this website called Numbeo. I could share the link. I'll put it in the private chat. Maybe Cassius can put it out there. Uh, so this website gives you a rough idea about living costs in different cities across the world. And the thing is that the prices which are mentioned here are accurate, but then again, it's a bit like over the top, I would say, because I could survive with 1600 francs in Lausanne, which is one of the most expensive cities in Switzerland. And when it comes to the cost of living, the main thing which you need to keep in mind is that your maximum investment will be in your housing where you're staying, so the rent of the place, and also like the health insurance and the taxes which you pay. So these are like the uh, most invested sectors for you. So choosing these wisely is important. So during my stay, I chose a shared apartment. So I was living with a few other people, and therefore the cost of the rent was pretty low, I would say. And that's one way you save money. And the other way is that you do groceries at like for groceries again you have many options, like there are many outlets and they have different prices, and so you just need to look that up. And it's 1600 is sustainable. Of course you don't get to live the Swiss life as such, but it's still like enough. Like I could live and travel across Switzerland, so it's possible. And this website like I'm referring to, that's really helpful, so you might yeah, check that out.
Thanks, Dibbo, Tanaz, and Sharika. You have anything to add to what Dibbo has just spoken?
Yeah, because like Dibbo said, it depends on the choices you make. I had
Yeah.
just one roommate, so I paid around 800 francs for that. And then again, the groceries you decide, and also the transportation, the mode of transportation you choose. And I think it's also university specific, because at UNIL, a meal cost, where the meals are quite reasonable compared to Swiss standards, the meal cost around 13 francs. But at EPFL, I could buy something for 6 francs. So there itself, there's a difference. Like, so I went to the shop inside the university. Inside the university canteen, it was 13 francs, but in EPFL at the sandwich shop, it was like half the price. So it all depends. So the first month you live and learn, and then you decide what kind of lifestyle you want. So I would say living comfortably, like a good life. I think 1600 is a bit. You are very smart if you could manage in 1600. So I think around 2000 is comfortable, I think, because I had the fund from my professor, thankfully. But 1600 is also doable. Yeah.
So, just a small like point from my side. So, when I was in Switzerland, when I just landed, I found out about the youth pass. Like people under the age of 26, they actually have subsidized rates for transportation. So that is one thing that I think everyone should know before they travel. And it actually like different cities in Switzerland have different cost of living. So I was based out of Bern. So unlike Zurich and Geneva, which are super expensive, I actually managed like pretty fine with 1,600 Swiss francs. So, and I was sitting, I was living like on the outskirts of Bern. So my rent was around like some 450 Swiss francs. So yeah, it's just about finding the right people to get the information from. Yeah. Hope that helps.
Yes, it certainly does. Again, thanks to all of you for answering this question. Now, Sharika, I have a question for you, and you've written a beautiful blog for us as well. So, I want to ask you, what are your obligations and responsibilities as a ThinkSwiss awardee? Just tell us about how you've documented your stay and how your experience was.
Okay. So, like I said, I was super excited when I got this opportunity. So, like first and foremost, I think Cassius was super helpful with us throughout the process. I believe we were the first batch that was in this program. So he actually created this group where all of us got to know each other. So we actually bonded a lot within our year, and we supported each other throughout our trip. So I think that is really important, being there for your fellow awardees. It's like helped me make connections, like people who I still speak to this day. So that's one. Second is obviously the research internship. Uh, that is like almost 80% of what you're expected as an awardee. Um, my my professor and I had very detailed timelines on what needs to be executed and when, so that kept the project on the timeline, or at least I could identify what were the risks that I was seeing, or why there were blocks in my project. So that communication with your professor and being on track with your project is another huge a part of being a ThinkSwiss scholar. And finally, I would say, like after I came back, I tried to be promoting this scholarship to especially people uh, that I knew of, like within my college, etc. And like Cassius mentioned, I was also writing about my experiences when I went there, not just being there, but why it's so important to have such a opportunity. Like personally, for me, it was life changing. I felt that I discovered a new side of myself. I enjoyed the freedom of being able to travel. Like I traveled almost all throughout Switzerland, and I also got to visit two more countries in Europe. So that was really nice. So yeah, those are the main points that I could think of. What do you guys think?
I think initially when you land in Switzerland, you do all the documenting unconsciously because you are so excited that you're at a new place. And yeah, but when the project kicks in and things are getting more intense and exciting, I think that's when documenting uh, gets a bit challenging because you are invested in your project a lot. But then again, it's actually fun because that makes you get a feel of the work life balance which is there in Europe, in the sense that you are working full time during the week, and then on the weekends you are like motivated to go on trips and journeys. So that actually feels good, and it's also refreshing before the next week starts. So, and also like I actually went to Switzerland during Corona times, so it wasn't the best time to socialize and make friends. But then again, you go on these journeys and you spontaneously meet people, and that's like a really good thing over here. So yeah.
Yeah, I think my as a scholarship awardee, my responsibility is towards uh, like spreading the message of that there is such a scholarship available, that it is possible for students like us to go abroad and like have an experience of the research culture there. And yeah, the documentation. So I was taking a lot of videos and documenting things like that. And so I'm looking forward to sharing all the things that I have documented. And it was also very refreshing to this change of space. Like the Swiss academia works in a totally different style compared to the Indian academia, and there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning, and even the professors treat you like peers, and it's truly a beautiful experience. And I think we are all here to help who are interested in pursuing this opportunity.
Thanks again, guys, for your thoughts and comments to the question. Now, I have a question for Taenaz. What is the format expected for an acceptance letter from a professor in Switzerland? Like, do you,
For the motivation letter.
for the motivation letter? Yes, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. So, did they have any particular expectation template? Because this is also
um,
a query which I've received quite frequently.
yeah, so the format that I gave it was in like initially. So when I got to know about the topic, I quickly did a Google Scholar search, and I found all I found at least 5 good papers which I would be referring to. And then I made a proposal stating like why I'm interested in the project, and how I will be an asset to the project, and how the project will be helpful for me. And like so I think the Swiss professors, they really value honesty, and like all professors everywhere. So it's very important that there is heart in your proposal. That's what I feel. And since like it was a major blessing for me that I knew the professor already, and that I've written papers with him, so he could endorse my abilities. So if you can also bring in somewhere where, if it's qualitative methods that you're going to use, or quantitative methods that you would like to imply in the project, whatever it is, it's very important for you to demonstrate how you will be able to use your skills in the project, and how you will be using it in future, like how this project will help you in future. So this is how I wrote my motivation letter.
Thanks, Tanaz. Any thoughts, Sharika and Dibya? Did you have to follow any protocol when you wrote your motivation letter?
Tipo, do you want to go first or shall I?
You can go ahead.
Okay. So generally, like whenever I write, like this is personal again, whenever I write a statement of motivation, I try to give my background. Like Dana said, that it creates credibility to your statement. The next, I go on to like why this project, like why do I want to work on it. So in my case, I was going to join. Or like as a part of an ongoing project, so there was already work done, and I could tailor the statement in such a way that my current skill set would complement the project. So I was an ideal fit for the project in a way. And last, another part was how do I help Swissnex, tell more students about this opportunity. So in my university, I used to be part of all these big events. So I've led them. So I'm effective in terms of communication, etc. So this is one thing that I had like wanted to share as well in my motivation letter. So yeah, that's it from my side on this.
I guess Sharika and Tanas covered most of it, but in like like I mentioned, in my case, there was already an open project available, so I kind of had the guideline about writing the motivation letter. Like I knew what science I was going to write about. So, like Sharika mentioned, it's important to highlight the abilities which are necessary for the project and which you have. So, of course, start with a background, but put in the relevant details because there's always a word limit. So, uh, highlight the points which will make you a good fit for the project, then write some stuff about the background, so that the professor knows that you actually read about it and that you are interested in the thing which you want to do. And finally, you kind of have to justify why you are suited for the project and how doing the project with this scholarship is going to be helpful in the long run. So I would say if you highlight these points, it's a pretty good motivation letter.
Yeah. I'm sure these comments will be really appreciated by our viewers because there's, I think, a lot of anxiety when writing the motivation letter to professors, and obviously it's justified. So moving on to the next question, it's a visa question. So which is the type of visa you need to apply for? Like Dibya, Sharika, Taenaz, it's an open. The floor is open. You can take turns and answer because I think Dibya, you applied for a different visa.
Yeah.
Yes, and Sharika and Taenaz have applied for a different visa. So yeah, first we can begin with Dibya and move over to Sharika and Taenaz.
Yeah, so the ThinkSwiss scholarship is for 3 months. So normally the awardees get this Schengen visa, which is for like less than 90 days. But in my case, I was going there for my master's thesis, and the ThinkSwiss was going to complement my already funded project. So I had to apply for a national visa, which is also called the D visa, which is for more than 90 days. So the way it works is that you apply for the visa. It takes 3 months for processing, which is something specific to this kind of visa. So if you are applying for the D visa, you need to apply well beforehand. And the thing is that when you give your passport to the visa center, they give you the visa, but the visa is only an entry visa. So for me, it was just valid for 10 days, which meant that I had to go to Switzerland within that 10-day window. So you get the visa, you go to Switzerland, and then you apply for a residence permit. And you need a residence permit when you're living for like more than 3 months. So for me, the visa process was like that. And maybe Sharika and Tanas can also share their experiences now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall I go?
Yes, Taenaz, go ahead.
Yeah. So it was mine was a Type C 3-month visa, and it was there was some confusion between my travel agent and like they were asking me to take a longer Type D visa, and so I wrote to the Swiss embassy in Delhi. I wrote to them, and they clearly, I told them the reason I'm going, and then this is the duration of the project, and so on, and they reply within a few working days. So I, from my, in my knowledge, it's the Type C visa that you're supposed to take if it is just this project that you are uh, intending to go for currently. So, and then if you get a longer thing, then that's later on. But if it's just for the 3 months, then it's Type C visa. Yeah, that's what I
So
know.
Yeah, go ahead, Sharika.
my project was for just a little less than 3 months. So it was pretty straightforward for me. I applied for the Schengen C type visa.
Mhm. Yeah, great. So basically, just keep in mind that if you're staying for longer than 3 months, you will need a Type D visa. Otherwise, so if you have additional funding, if a professor is supporting you to stay back in Switzerland for a longer duration, then you have to prepare yourself well in advance to apply for a Type D visa. Otherwise, a Type C visa is the one you need to apply for if you're only going for 3 months and applying specifically for ThinkSwiss. If you have another project in mind, then it will be a Type D visa. So that's the visa question. And yes, another administrative question. You will be asked to provide sufficient financial means to the cantonal authorities. So, did you face any difficulty over here? If anybody would like to elaborate on this.
I can go ahead. So
Mhm.
I think this is very dependent on the canton which you are going to. Personally, I did not face an issue, so I can't really say. if there was a problem. So I'll tell you what I did. So, like when I applied for the visa, for me, I actually thought that 1600 is the scholarship, so it must be enough to sustain myself. So I multiplied 1600 with the number of months I'd be staying, which was like around 9 months. So the amount which I got at the end, it was, if I convert that to Indian money, it's something around, I don't know, 10 lakhs or 11 lakhs, something around that amount. And the thing is that I think if you're a student, the embassy people, they don't really bother about how much money you have personally if you're funded. So I just had to show the letter from the ThinkSwiss that I got the fellowship, and also a letter from my PI who said that okay, that he'll support me for the rest of the period. And just for backup, I had to show some funds. So I had funds from my parents and from a relative. Like if I sum them up together, it'll be around like 15 lakhs or something. And I just needed a letter from my parents and the relative saying that if I need the money while I'm in Switzerland, they are willing to transfer the money to me and support me. So that was all I needed. I didn't have to, actually transfer the money to my personal account and stuff. I just had to show them that I have people who are willing to support me in case something happens in Switzerland. So, and that worked. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dibbo. Sharika and Taenaz, did you face anything as such from the cantonal authorities? Did you have to provide any proof?
I think she's speaking.
Yeah,
Sharika, you're on
Sharika,
mute.
you're on mute. We don't hear you. No, we still don't. That's okay. Taenaz, you want to go ahead
Yeah,
in the
sure.
meantime? Yeah.
Yeah. So I did not face any issue because since I'm not employed, I mean, I had my stipend, but that doesn't count as an employment, I guess. So, and it wouldn't be enough if I showed my stipend. But so I showed. So the visa, there's a list of documents that you have to submit. So if you are a dependent, you can show your family's bank account statement, like Dibbo was saying, and that's what I did. I showed my parents' account, and then that was enough. They didn't create any issues as such. So basically, they just want to make sure that you will come back and you won't. That's their intention, just to make sure that you will come back and
Yeah.
you're just not going to run away. That you have reason to come back. I think that's their main concern, that
Yeah.
you are not going to elope.
Sorry, guys. Internet issue.
Yeah.
My Dippo
Yeah.
had
Now we can hear you.
it for me. Like I followed the same process.
Okay, great. So there goes the administrative question about providing sufficient the proof of sufficient financial means. Now I just want each of you to talk about, like, sum up your research experience. How was it for you, Sharika? How was it for you, Taenaz and UNIL? And since you were in different parts of Switzerland as well, so I think our viewers would want to know about uh, hear from you from first-hand experience. Would you how and whether you would recommend it to young applicants to pursue the ThinkSwiss scholarship? Is it going to be beneficial for them in the future if they're looking for a PhD? I think that should be the key takeaway if they want to pursue further research in Switzerland. Whether they should invest in the scholarship, take the time out, apply, and put in the effort, basically. So yeah, who wants to go first?
I can go first if that's okay
Mhm.
with everyone.
Mhm.
So, as I've said multiple times on the call, I'm a huge champion for opportunities like this. Like for sure, like when I first landed in Switzerland, it was like pretty overwhelming, to be honest, because everything was different from what I was used to. But over like the first week, I got myself used to and accustomed to a new culture. Like for sure, it is very, very different from how we live in India. Coming to work, like my entire lab was very friendly and approachable. Like at every stage, I could like reach out to the professor or like my own PhD guide. They helped me throughout the process, and like you get to experience a new way of working. And like personally for me, I saw some drawbacks in how I used to work compared to others that I met in the lab. And that's helped me like better myself. So that was a huge take back for me, apart from just doing an internship in Switzerland. So for sure, I recommend this to everyone.
Maybe I can go next.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like Sharika mentioned, it's a totally different atmosphere in Switzerland compared to the Indian research scene. And Sharika might remember that I actually used to email her with my questions and stuff
Oh
before
yeah.
I visited Switzerland. So I did kind of have an idea about what to expect and how things are. That being said, so it's definitely different, but you get used to it, and it's you will have positive and negative experiences both, like any other thing. So, but mostly positive stuff is that you get to learn a different work culture, and it's also very enriching, given that there's like what I appreciate over here is the work life balance. So people work sincerely, and after that they actually have like a life outside work hours, which is pretty interesting and nice. And you have a lot of good stuff to do here. Like Switzerland is known for its nature, the mountains, also the art and the nice views. So you can explore. It's a small country, so it's really easy to travel. And apart from that, it's got one of the like best research institutes, like ETH Zurich or EPFL. They are pretty famous, so it's pretty cool to be here. Yeah. And actually, I would recommend doing this because you actually make connections. And once you are in Switzerland, one thing I've seen is that Swiss people prefer offline interactions. So when you are actually in person interacting with people, it creates a better impression rather than writing emails. And that's kind of the way I landed a PhD in Switzerland following this. So once I was doing my thesis in Switzerland, I was also applying to labs for PhD. And since I was in Europe, I could physically visit those labs. And physically visiting is, of course, better than having a Zoom meeting, and you can create a better impression. So this actually helps you in the further steps. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say the same thing about, like Dibya said about work-life balance. Um, I think in India it is considered good if you're working on a weekend, whereas in Switzerland, if you're working on a weekend, your professor will be like, why didn't you go out? Why aren't you going for a trek? Why, what's wrong with you?" So it's not considered cool to work on your weekend. It's considered cool that you have a personal life as well as your work life. And another thing is like there are like good opportunities for research in Switzerland, and the your peers are always very encouraging. So I really enjoyed working with the my professor's group, his PhD students. So they were all very helpful, and there was always they have these brown bag meetings where we all discuss what we are working on, and we get inputs for our paper from the others, and we also give our inputs to the others. So it's a very nice and very healthy environment. And one thing I've noticed about the people here is that they are very kind, but they also like the space. Like, so that's something I truly cherish, like having my personal space and not being over friendly and over anything. So there's this really beautiful balance in the kind of relationships that people keep here. So overall, it's a wonderful experience, and good luck.
I'm glad that all three of you had a good and mostly positive experience. So let's move on to a few of the audience questions now. I think, Dibya, you can answer this. Harshita Vasan is asking, can you give the names of some alternative scholarships that you can apply to as additional funding for your stay in Switzerland? And as you also had applied for a scholarship
Yeah.
even before ThinkSwiss, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can answer this one.
So uh, for if you're asking Switzerland specific scholarships, then actually ThinkSwiss is the one which comes to my mind. Other than that, one way of approaching this would be to ask your professor who you're applying to actually. So professors write grants for projects from time to time,
Mhm.
and I know friends who have gone to Switzerland in that way. So they discuss a project with their professor, and if it's interesting, they write a grant together. And if they succeed in getting the grant money, then they can fund their stage using that. So I would say, like, talk to your professor, ask them if they know about some fellowships which are available or some grants you can apply to. So that should be helpful.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for scholarship opportunities outside Switzerland, I mean, we can talk about that later, perhaps.
So,
Thanks.
like something that comes to my mind is your home universities. They actually enable students to go and do research in international facilities because they find it to be a holistic experience. So, I actually had a travel grant that helped me cover the cost of travel. But this is again very specific to home universities. I can't say that this would be there for all.
Yeah. Thank you, Dibya and Sharika, for answering this question. I have received one more query is how many applications do we receive and how many do you select on average? From Madhav Chaudhary. Madhav, sorry, this information is confidential, so I cannot give you the specific amount. However, we receive hundreds of applications. So I cannot give you the exact number, but it's a highly competitive scholarship. And his follow-up question is, he could only find selections from IITs or triple IT. Does the program prioritize applicants from these institutes? Absolutely not. We don't have any affiliation with IIT or the triple IT institutes, and it's open to all streams as well. We've given out scholarships to social science students, law graduates as well in the past. And it just, I mean, if we find a good application or good holistic application, we award the scholarship to that person. So,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm from
we are
a
not.
social science background.
Yes, so there you
Yeah.
go. I mean, we are not prioritizing any stream or any institute, and I hope that answers your question. I have a question from Ramesh Suresh. He asks, is there an incentive for filling the application form early? No, there is no incentive, and we mostly receive the applications towards the tail end of the deadline. So yeah, there is no incentive. Take your time, fill in a whole put.
Did Cassius get
Yeah,
stuck?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's frozen.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's just give him 2 minutes to join back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But coming to this submitting form application early, I think it mostly depends on when your professor sends in the acceptance letter, and that's usually towards the end. So I don't think you can usually submit it early unless your professor is really nice.
Yeah, and like in my case, I kept trying to perfect my statement of motivation as much as I could. And the word limit was hard because you try to think of the perfect application and you just have to cut down and meet the word limit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
have a
true.
similar experience like Sharika. My professor was exceptionally kind. I just wrote to him and he sent me then and there. And I wrote to him towards the end asking for it. There was very little time, but he just gave it to me quickly. But then I made changes and I was the one who kept delaying it. Yeah. So are we supposed to take the questions? I see. Yeah, we could, because in the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
for my letter of recommendation, it was from my professors, like someone who teaches me, taught me at IISER, and some from my summer internships. So yeah, I do not actually know if you can take it from someone else.
So, again, in my case as well, I had taken the letter of recommendation from a professor who had taught me. So, I remember in the year I was applying to, the FAQ had specifically called out that the letter needs to be from a professor. So, maybe just check what is the current information that's shared in the FAQs regarding the letter of recommendation. If it specifically calls out a professor, then yes.
uh, I've also had the similar experience, as in the FAQ clearly mentioned that it has to be a professor. I don't remember whether they said current or not, but I actually had asked two of my professors, thinking that one of them would write, and both of them gave it to me. So I included both their letters, because eventually you have to compile it into a PDF and submit it. So yeah, I think you will just have to look at the FAQ, the current FAQ, what is put up, and I think it's always safer if it's a current professor. No, I'm not sure, but I think you
Yeah,
just go
I
by
mean,
what.
someone who can vouch for your abilities like
Yeah,
right now and who knows your skills up to date. I think that's the best
yeah.
thing.
I think that's very important that the professor shows confidence
Hmm.
in us. What is the acceptance rate for ThinkSwiss? Because this we don't know.
Yeah,
And I don't, I think it was very clearly mentioned when we had applied that having a confirmation letter and a support letter from a Swiss professor does not necessarily mean that you will get the scholarship. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
So the second part of the question, yeah, I knew the answer to. The
yeah.
first part, no idea. Do we
But
have
I
more
think
questions?
during my years, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I'm just wondering. What happened during your year?
I think during my year, around 10 people were accepted. I mean, when people get accepted, their names are usually published on Facebook or the website. So you,
Oh,
if not the acceptance rate, you can have an idea about, on average, how many people are getting selected every year. So
okay. I don't. I don't think our names were published anywhere. Not sure. But I'm not sure whether everyone could go because of COVID. Like some of
actually,
them had the option.
yeah.
Some of them had the option of choosing a digital internship or something like that. If
Hmm.
those who couldn't go,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think like in our batch, like we like the names of people who were accepted was after we had all completed the internship, and this was all pre-COVID.
Okay. Yeah, actually, during my time, it's like only I could go from my batch only because I was applying for a national D visa because
Um,
Schengen visa was suspended during that time, so no one could apply for the visa in the first place, which was very unfortunate.
so you're the lucky one.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
that was also quite tricky because of COVID. Like they had suspended Schengen visa for some time,
yeah,
and yeah, so that's
Yeah,
why I had a
mm,
confusion and I had to write to the embassy
yeah.
asking how I should be applying.
I feel
Mm,
like I dodged a bullet.
Yeah, a big one.
mm.
Hi, Cassius.
Oh,
Hello.
finally. I don't know. I mean, I could hear the entire conversation, but I somehow couldn't get in. It's so weird. Anyways, I am sorry. I apologize to the audience about this minor glitch. But I heard about the acceptance rate. And again, this is confidential information. I cannot give you the exact number, but it is a very competitive scholarship. I'm not trying to oversell it to you. So you will be applying to a competitive scholarship, and hence I said keep ensure that you submit all your documents. Do not leave anything out there. Just put all your eggs in the basket, and yeah, hope for the best. We select a well-rounded application. So if you are on the fence about applying because your GPA is low, do not hesitate, because GPA is not the defining factor. It's just one of the factors when you apply for ThinkSwiss. In fact, we've given scholarships to students with a lower GPA but with a much better rounded resume. And we have like an intense debate internally as well within the committee. So you can be rest assured that we give out the scholarship to the most deserving students who are well rounded and who truly have shown the motivation to pursue it. And with that, I don't see any more questions. I would like to uh, thank our former ThinkSwiss recipients, Sharika, Dibya, and Taenaz, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and the effort you've put in answering the questions, which I which I asked you, and also for a lot of the questions from the audience. To the audience, I hope that we were able to answer your doubts and queries about the ThinkSwiss Scholarship, and I look forward to receiving some interesting applications. If you face delay in my response to you over email, just bear in mind that I'm receiving lots of queries, like literally, I'm not even exaggerating. So hence we decided to have this Ask Me Anything session. So hopefully we could answer a lot of the doubts you've had, which you've been asking me over email. And still, if you have any pressing queries which you feel we've not answered here, do not hesitate to reach out to me over email or LinkedIn. And that's about it. Have a good evening, and yeah,
Thank you so much.
good night.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
All the best.
All the
All the
best.
best, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye
Thanks.
bye.